What's up, nerds? Phoenix, the Halfbeard here, your resident DM and D&D aficionado here on Dungeons and Jergens, the home for your most pressing questions on our favorite role-playing hobby, and some questions that weren't quite so pressing. Without further ado, let's get into the fun. As my table's resident DM for the past forever, I've discovered that my strengths come in being prepared over improvising. Somewhere between anxiety and humor, I tend to default to things that are either not all that funny or really unbalanced, and things just get too wacky. So, accordingly, I like to have things like a list of names on hand, and in my downtime, I like to look up hotly debated, semi-legal concepts that the internet has cooked up. I'm talking to you, Reddit. One such concept is known as the monk shotgun. For this technique, prototypically, a party will get a bag of holding and fill it to the brim with whatever they can find. Usually, at least the generic concept, is that you fill it with the 1,000 ball bearings that you got on your starting equipment and never bothered to do anything else with. And then whenever combat breaks out, preferably as a defense mechanism, because this takes a little bit to set up, 2 strong characters will hold the bag of holding on either side with the opening facing toward the foe. And then, because of their propensity for running really fast and punching things really hard, a monk will take a running start, go as far away as he can, sometimes with the assistance of haste from wizard or sorcerer or whatever magical type you can get. Use this running start and punch that bag of holding inside out, ruining the magical item, and hopefully whatever was previously standing before them. The visual of thousands of little metal balls flying at high speeds at the dragon beholder deity uppity shopkeeper, your pick, is striking and frankly devastating. However, there is nothing in any official 5th edition book that explains how to calculate the damage for this magnificent mess. I know, I've read all of them. Now, me preferring to be on top of things from the outset and there being no obvious way to calculate this, I decided to curb my players' enthusiasm for such a concept by telling them about it and telling them why I can't allow it at my table. Naturally, this backfired, because that just meant they really wanted to do it. Because in all of my attempts to try and convince people that this is something I don't want to do at my table, I'm just the one telling them it exists. So I had a solution to this, at least. If they could calculate the damage in a way that I felt was appropriate, I would allow it. None of my players are ballistic scientists or even mathematically inclined, so I felt safe in this one. However, the other DM in my party decided he was going to start consulting with one of his mathematical college buddies, and I got concerned. Not because he was actually getting a consult, but because the math was subpar, and I just couldn't have that. So, after much figuring and spreadsheeting and everything else, here is my solution on how to calculate the damage on the monk shotgun. First, I would have to figure out the things that have to be accounted for in this formula. Now, while prototypically the monk shotgun is made up of ball bearings, that doesn't mean it has to be ball bearings. It could be daggers, crowbars, barrels of mead, vials of hair growth, really confused chickens, severed body parts, or literally anything else that a party can stuff into a bag of holding. Something about this has to be accounted for as a variable. My equation would have to account for not only the number of things, but the weight of things, because there's a difference in 1 dagger, 1 ball bearing, 1,000 ball bearings, 1 barrel, and a lot of barrels. Next, I'm no physicist, I'm just a nerd with a programming and art degree who likes to do spreadsheets for funsies. But I am very cognizant that it's called the monk shotgun because of speed attached to it, and punching ability. That being said, in lieu of a monk, you could obviously replace it with a different kind of character. It doesn't have to be a monk just because he can punch so well. It could be the party's fighter, paladin, barbarian, a wizard if his wizard sleeves are hiding a particular amount of swollenness. So, strength is a factor. Finally, I feel that it was important to calculate the receiving end of this attack. There's obviously a difference in an unlucky goblin, an incredibly nimble assassin, or a Tarrasque. Always account for a Tarrasque. Not to mention it's behind a tree, that kind of affects its effectiveness. It's not as effective to shoot a shotgun at a person through a tree? I don't think. Therefore, armor class has to be in the calculation. Despite that long-windedness, this is really me trying to keep it simple enough to where it's not accounting for complex ballistic minutiae, physics and whatnot. We're not including the Coriolis effect because that's too much. If you want to include something like that, go for it. I'm not stopping you, but I am stopping me. Without further ado, the formula I came up with to calculate the damage of the Monk shotgun is a combination of the kinetic energy formula and some efficiency modifiers to account for the various armor classes and strengths. So what I have is 1/2 mass in kilograms times velocity squared. Kinetic energy, straightforward. This is multiplied by the efficiency, which is essentially strength minus armor class divided by 20. This gives you an output in joules. I'm aware that D&D works in pounds and feet, at least in the States. So if you're going from pounds to kilograms, you got to divide your pounds by 2.205 and your feet into meters by 3.28. Calling back to our prototypical description, let's plug in some numbers. 1/2 the mass, which is 2 pounds or 0.0907 kilograms, times the velocity, 30 feet of movement, plus 30 feet for a key point spent bonus action dash, equals 60 feet of movement. 60 feet of movement over a 6-second turn is 10 meters per second. 10 feet per second, which is 3.047 meters per second squared. Just to give this the best possible chance we have, let's go ahead and make the Monk strength a full 20. And let's put a poor little goblin in front of it. That's a 15 for armor class. All of this gives us a final output of 1.05 joules. Now that number is all well and good, but I can use some high-level divination magic right now to hear you say, "Phoenix, you numpty. What do you mean the bad guy doesn't get to save or dodge or anything? You just don't have to roll to hit, it just hits? How is punching a bag of holding as accurate as magic missile?" Well, hold your horses, fans of force damage. We have to convert that joules into actual damage. In what certainly landed me on a number of government watch lists that I was not previously on, I did a lot of research into what it takes in terms of joules to kill a person. The pretentious types give me all sorts of various numbers, but it only needs this much to, stab someone in the throat, or this much to crush all their bones into paste. You people on the internet are weird. After much searching, I finally decided that a ballistics comparison was the most sensible, and so I went with the lowest possible joule output handgun I could find, which is a .22 LR, which has a joules output of 150. In case you're as gun dumb as I was, a .22 LR is the minimum. Like, it's not allowed in most states as a hunting weapon because it may not kill the target. It might just maim it. It's not recommended for home protection because, and I quote, "there is a significant chance that you will not be able to do enough damage to stop an attacker before they seriously injure or kill you or a loved one." This is the minimum. Let's say as a stretch, the .22 LR is just enough to kill a 4 HP commoner, which means that 1 damage is 37.5 joules. Our Monk shotgun does 1.05 joules for a mind-boggling 0.03 damage against the goblin. This isn't a goblin thing either. The lowest armor class I could find on any official monster is the Crawling Claw with a 7. Same items and same speed deal 0.07 damage. Well, I guess that's that. Not a lot of damage to waste a lot of action economy that I've been stressing over for nothing. Kind of a lackluster first episode. Wait a minute. I have 2 ideas. Give me just 1 second to cast Sending. And that's another 3rd level spell cast today. Secondly, hearkening back to one of my biggest inspirations, the Mythbusters, whenever they would have a lackluster result, they would ramp it up as high as the bomb squad would allow. The bag of holding can hold up to 500 pounds of whatever, and the low end of what Google indicates is the fastest a character can go, using magic items and artifacts and everything. It's impossible for you people to agree on anything. But the minimum, with still having an action available to punch a bag, seems to be about 4,000 feet. To translate, that's a level 20, boned up, 20 strength, cat person, barbarian, monk, right hooking a magically enchanted clutch at 454.4 miles per hour. The results of this are devastating. That goblin from our first example's 15 armor class is enough to reduce the damage by 75%, but it just doesn't matter. He is instantly turned to giblets as he takes 1,170,244 joules square in the everything. By my calculations, this will deal out a whopping 31,206.5 damage. That tiny green prick is no more, and you've saved the village. Hooray! You did it! Right? You see, that amount of energy output has its drawbacks. What or whomever is holding the bag is going to face an immense amount of energy pulling on his shoulders. Since they're holding it, I'm going to go ahead and say they can't dodge, so that's a 0 armor class. Even if you wanted to argue that they're only having to deal with the 15 pounds of the bag as compared to the 500 that was in it, at those speeds they're still experiencing 140,429 joules, or 3,745 damage, which is more than enough to disarm them. Luckily, they won't be alive long enough to actually feel this, because even if you can get all the pieces in place for this ridiculous maneuver and get the target in the right place, and if the holder's arms will hold up long enough to actually deliver the damage, it doesn't matter. It was still a mistake to try this. When that Khajiit-looking wannabe Flash build pulls off this maneuver at that speed, he'll be imparting 4,680,976 joules into it. The sheer amount of energy in this is equivalent to 1.1 kilograms of TNT, which is enough to obliterate a car. The puncher dies, the holders die, the target maybe dies, anyone nearby is at least severely wounded, and you're the hero. Illuminator watch over them. Thank you very much for sitting through this far of this ridiculous nonsense. It's been a lot of fun working on this thing. It's a big change from anything else I've ever done. If you have any questions or suggestions on how to fix this ridiculous math thing that really doesn't account for a whole lot, I'd be happy to hear your opinions. The plans for this channel as they stand are to do some monster head-to-heads, some random build combinations, some more mechanically driven nonsense, occasional DM game theory. It's a little bit of hit and miss. It's not an itinerary, it's a suggestion. If there's anything on that you like or don't like, let me know. I'll prioritize it. And there's my delivery. Remember whenever I said that 2 pounds at 7-ish miles isn't all that dangerous? I'm putting my half beard where my mouth is. So click the video somewhere on screen or in the links below to see me face down a colorful version of the Monk shotgun. I'm coming! This has been Phoenix the Half-Beard DM here on Dungeons & Dragons, and until next time, party on.